the news.
Hi, I'm Tessa with Brainrot News with a few bits of news for you to choke on from March 21st. Under the new, totally responsible leadership of FBI Director Kash Patel, the FBI has decided that domestic terrorism just isn't a big deal anymore. Staffing in the Domestic Terrorism Operations section has been slashed, and the tracking tool for such investigations has been tossed out. This shift conveniently aligns with the Trump administration's apparent reluctance to scrutinize groups that, let's be honest, make up a chunk of their voter base. Despite previous warnings that white supremacist and anti-government extremist groups pose significant security threats, the administration seems more interested in redirecting the FBI's resources elsewhere. The Joint Terrorism Task Forces are now busy assisting with immigration enforcement and labeling attacks on corporations like Tesla as domestic terrorism, because we are totally protecting the homeland by cracking down on activists. If you organize against billionaires, the FBI cares. If you stockpile weapons and openly talk about overthrowing the government, it's fine as long as you play for the right team. To drive the point home, Trump tapped Dan Bongino, a conspiracy-peddling right-wing podcaster, to help run the FBI. You know, just in case anyone thought law enforcement should remain independent. This message is clear. Extremism is only a problem if it's inconvenient for the people in power. So if you are wondering whether domestic terrorists are getting a free pass under the administration, the answer is a resounding yes. But don't worry, if you post something mean about Elon Musk, they'll be right with you. Israeli forces have ramped up their assault on Gaza, turning what was left of a ceasefire into little more than a punchline. Airstrikes have wiped out entire families, while evacuation orders keep coming through. At this point, Palestinians might as well be asked to evacuate into the sea because there's nowhere left for them to run. The military insists it will maintain control until all hostages are freed, which sounds a lot like indefinitely, given Israel's track record of moving goalposts when it comes to Palestinian suffering. Meanwhile, in a brief moment of intra-apartheid drama, Israel's Supreme Court has temporarily blocked Netanyahu's attempt to fire Shin Bet chief Ronan Bar. Netanyahu's effort to axe Bar is widely seen as another desperate ploy to consolidate power, because being on trial for corruption and presiding over a genocidal war apparently isn't keeping him busy enough. While the court's decision does slow him down, it's hardly a victory for democracy. After all, this is the same court that rubber stamps apartheid. It's like expecting the arsonist to call the fire department. Then there's Trump, who has thrown America's full support behind Israel's assault, ensuring that U.S. tax dollars continue funding the mass slaughter. Wannabe dictators need to stick together, of course. His administration has taken things further by cracking down on pro-Palestinian activism at home, with student protesters facing arrest, deportation, and visa revocations. Apparently, chanting for a free Palestine is a greater offense than leveling entire neighborhoods. But despite it all, Palestine endures, because you can occupy land, you can flatten cities, but you cannot erase a people's right to exist. The U.S. Democratic Party has finally decided to take the internet seriously, launching a new digital strategy that enlists influencers, podcasters, and content creators to reach voters. Because when democracy is on the line, who better to save it than a 22-year-old TikToker doing a dance challenge while explaining Medicare for all? Led by Senator Cory Booker, this bold new effort aims to double online engagement within a year by rolling out explainers, podcasts, and live streams. Apparently, nothing gets people fired up for an election like a well-lit Instagram Live. So far, the strategy is making waves, topping trending charts, but not all press is good press. The rollout hit a bit of a speed bump when multiple Democratic senators released identical scripted videos critiquing Trump's speech, instantly triggering a wave of mockery. If there's one thing that screams authenticity, it's a dozen politicians reading the same script like a poorly rehearsed high school play. Naturally, conservatives pounced on this, with Elon Musk, Twitter's resident divorced dad in crisis, chiming in to say, "They're all actors reading a script," a bold critique from a man whose entire personality is just reposting stale memes and artificially inflating his own engagement. Even within the party, there's a debate over how to strike a balance between polished messaging and actual human communication. Some Democrats are urging a more natural approach, acknowledging that people tend to tune out when politicians talk like an AI-generated customer service rep. Despite growing pains, the party leaders insist that mastering digital media is crucial, especially with the rise of a more aggressive right-wing online presence that treats misinformation like a competitive sport. So will this new strategy help Democrats energize voters, or will it just become another case study in why boomers shouldn't try too hard to be cool online? Time will tell, but if the party really wants to win the internet, maybe they should start by hiring some of those Gen Z trolls who keep making conservative politicians rage quit their own comment sections. Elon Musk, the tech mogul, who seemingly can't decide whether he wants to colonize Mars or American politics, is back at it. His latest venture, a political action committee he's funding, is offering Wisconsin voters $100 to sign a petition opposing so-called activist judges. And wouldn't you know it, this little cash for signature scheme just happens to be rolling out 2 weeks before the crucial Wisconsin Supreme Court election. Weird how that happened. What's at stake is the court's ideological balance, with Democrat-backed Susan Crawford facing off against Republican-preferred Brad Schimel. The winner will have a major say in decisions on abortion rights, public sector unions, and voting regulations. So naturally, Musk, who, let's not forget, is not a Wisconsin voter, has decided to wade into this race with the same subtlety he brings to firing Twitter employees. Musk's PAC pulled a similar stunt in the 2024 presidential election, because a free and fair democracy is when a billionaire throws money around to get the results he wants. Also, let's not ignore the personal angle here. Crawford's campaign has called out Musk's meddling, noting that Tesla is currently tangled up in legal disputes with Wisconsin over dealership bans. So this isn't some grand ideological stand against activist judges. It's about protecting Musk's financial and political interests, because at the end of the day, his political philosophy boils down to regulations are bad unless they help me make more money and further my regime. So while Wisconsin voters are out there making real choices about their future, Musk is busy treating democracy like a vending machine. Drop in enough cash, and out comes the policy you ordered. But hey, at least this time he's paying people before screwing them over. That's like progress, right? Russia's idea of diplomacy continues to be setting things on fire and hoping nobody notices. Western officials have been tracking a spree of Russian sabotage operations across Europe, because apparently launching a full-scale invasion of Ukraine wasn't enough. Since the invasion began 3 years ago, Russian operatives and their proxies have been hacking, torching, and exploding their way through Europe like a gang of unhinged arsonists with a geopolitical grudge. The Associated Press has counted 59 of these incidents, meaning if you see something mysteriously on fire in Europe, odds are Moscow had a hand in it. One of their grand ideas? A foiled plot to plant explosives on cargo planes, because when you're already an international pariah, why not add terrorist state to the resume? They've also been going after critical infrastructure in the Baltic Sea, proving that if Russia can't control something, they'll settle for making it uninhabitable. NATO and European intelligence agencies have been clear. This isn't just rogue actors causing trouble. It's a calculated Kremlin operation meant to spread fear, break alliances, and chip away at support for Ukraine. Putin knows he can't win militarily, so he's trying to sabotage the countries backing Ukraine, hoping they'll get distracted or scared off. Classic bully tactics, except with more explosions and less playground name-calling. Naturally, Russia denies everything, because admitting to crimes isn't really their style, but the evidence is overwhelming, and every day the world gets another reminder that the Kremlin's idea of diplomacy is just organized crime on a global scale. In Missouri, a group of over 50 citizen activists gathered in a public library to fight back against state legislators who think voter approved is just a suggestion. Their cause? Believing that when people vote for paid sick leave and a higher minimum wage, those policies should actually happen. Radical, right? Missouri Republicans, never one to let democracy get in the way of corporate interests, have decided that the best way to serve the people is by overriding their will entirely. But why stop at wages and sick leave? They're also coming for abortion rights, because small government is when you use the state to control people's bodies. Just to ensure voters don't get any more rebellious ideas, they're working to make it harder to pass constitutional amendments in the future. This isn't just a Missouri problem either. It's part of a growing trend of lawmakers across 18 states trying to kneecap citizen ballot initiatives before they can even become law. Arkansas, Utah, Arizona, and South Dakota have all jumped on the bandwagon, proving that when democracy threatens those in power, their first instinct is to rig the rules. Voters aren't backing down, though. Activists are now pushing for state constitutional protections to stop lawmakers from treating democracy like an optional feature. The message is clear. If politicians won't respect the will of the people will fight to make sure they have no choice. For decades, scientists have assured us that the universe would expand forever, growing colder and emptier until everything just sort of stops. A bleak but predictable fate known as the Big Freeze. New data from the Dark Energy Spectroscopic Instrument suggests that dark energy, the mysterious force pushing the universe apart, might be losing steam. If it keeps slacking off, gravity could eventually take over and pull everything back together in a spectacular cosmic implosion, also known as the Big Crunch. So instead of a slow, lonely fade into nothingness, we might be headed for a chaotic collapse, where the universe gets yeeted back into singularity like an old hard drive getting reformatted. Either way, it's not looking great for long-term real estate investments. Of course, these findings are still preliminary, and scientists need more data before they start rewriting the doomsday calendar. But if dark energy really is weakening, that means our entire understanding of the universe's fate has been based on a faulty assumption. Not that this should be surprising. Humanity has had a solid track record of thinking we've got everything figured out right before reality laughs in our face. For now, we'll just keep floating through space, blissfully unaware of whether we're on the path to an eternal freeze or an apocalyptic collapse. Either way, the universe seems to be having an existential crisis right alongside the rest of us. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has ordered even more U.S. firepower into the Middle East, sending a second aircraft carrier to patrol the region in what can only be described as a very expensive game of battleship. The USS Harry S. Truman will be extending its deployment. Because nothing boosts morale like canceling a homecoming, the USS Carl Vinson will reroute from the Pacific since apparently we can only threaten one part of the world at a time. The official excuse? Deter Iran and keep the Houthis from being a nuisance. The real reason? Well, when your entire foreign policy is built on military dominance, doubling down is always the answer. It's the second time in less than 6 months that 2 carriers have been parked in the region, making it clear that the US is interested less in diplomacy and more interested in ensuring that the arms industry never has a slow quarter. Unlike Biden, who at least tried to put some bureaucratic roadblocks on offensive military actions, Trump has given the Pentagon a freer hand to go after the Houthis. Nothing fixes instability like more airstrikes, right? So the cycle continues. Troops stay deployed, warships patrol the same waters, and a few defense contractors pop champagne. The Middle East remains a convenient playground for American militarism, and as always, the bill goes straight to the taxpayers. The Trump administration is toying with the idea of invoking the state secrets privilege to dodge accountability for deportation flights that defied a federal court order. When all else fails, just scream national security and hope everyone stops asking questions. A federal judge told the government to hold off on deporting Venezuelan immigrants. The administration went ahead with the flights anyway. Now, U.S. District Judge James Boasberg is demanding answers. The White House is frantically reaching for its favorite escape hatch: classified secrecy. After all, why explain blatant defiance of the law when you can just claim it's all too sensitive for public scrutiny? The Trump team insists that revealing details about the flights would trample on executive authority, as if following the law and preserving national security are somehow mutually exclusive. Meanwhile, in a display of peak authoritarian energy, some Trump allies are so offended by the mere existence of checks and balances that they're calling for Judge Boasberg's impeachment. Yes, impeaching a judge for expecting the government to obey its own rules. Even Chief Justice John Roberts, hardly a radical defender of judicial oversight, had to remind these folks that impeachment isn't just for when a judge makes you sad. This isn't just about deportation flights. This is about a government openly testing how far it can push the envelope before someone stops them. If this works, what next? Declaring drone strikes classified so courts can't question extrajudicial killings? Invoking state secrets to cover up domestic surveillance? The precedent here is chilling. We need to act before it is too late. In the latest installment of Let's Fix This Planet by Messing With It Even More, a growing industry is betting big on dumping minerals, seaweed, and crop residues into the ocean to capture carbon. When you've spent decades polluting the earth, why stop at land when you can experiment with the sea, too? Nearly 50 field trials have been conducted over the past 4 years as startups rake in hefty investments to turn the ocean into a carbon storage facility. Their business model? Selling carbon credits to corporations that would rather pay for the illusion of climate action than actually reduce emissions. Last year alone, over 340,000 marine carbon credits were sold, a staggering leap from the mere 2,000 credits 4 years ago. That's right, the market for eco-friendly guilt laundering is booming. Not everyone's convinced that this is the brilliant climate fix it claims to be. Scientists, coastal communities, and anyone with a basic understanding of unintended consequences are raising some inconvenient questions. What happens to marine ecosystems when we start treating the ocean like a giant carbon sponge? Will these projects actually store carbon long term, or are we just shifting pollution around in a very expensive game of hide and seek? Who benefits from this, aside from the companies cashing in on the carbon credit bonanza? Scaling up these projects would require massive amounts of resources, energy, and materials, things that don't exactly come with a zero carbon footprint. Proponents insist this is necessary to combat climate change, as if this kind of techno-optimism hasn't already led to a century of bad ideas with worse consequences. So, is this the future of climate action, or just another way for corporations to profit off of environmental desperation? One thing's for sure, if history has taught us anything, it's that when capitalism meets climate solutions, the planet is rarely the real winner. Boeing, a company that has spent the last decade making headlines for catastrophic failures, deadly crashes, and an endless parade of design flaws, just secured a $20 billion contract to build the Air Force's next-generation fighter jet, the F-47. Apparently, they are a trusted defense partner, a company whose commercial jets have been falling apart mid-flight. Right, sure. The deal under the Next Generation Air Dominance program comes as Boeing struggles to recover from a series of high-profile disasters. The company's track record isn't exactly inspiring. From the 737 MAX debacle to the KC-46 tanker riddled with defects, Boeing has become synonymous with costly mistakes that taxpayers always seem to cover, yet here it is, walking away with another massive defense contract, one that will replace the F-22 Raptor with promises of greater stealth, advanced sensors, and futuristic adaptability. Given Boeing's history, the realistic expectation should be delays, skyrocketing costs, and fighter jets with unexpected defects that will require billions to fix. The deal sent Boeing stock soaring, while Lockheed Martin, arguably the only company with a worse track record of keeping projects on budget, saw its shares take a hit. The real winner here, however, isn't the US military or national security, it's Boeing's executives and shareholders. They get to cash in, while Pentagon foots the bill for yet another corporate welfare package disguised as defense spending. Even Elon Musk, never one to pass up a government handout himself, pointed out that drones would be a more cost-effective and strategic investment. Strategic thinking has never been a strong suit of the military-industrial complex, where failure is rewarded as long as the right people are paid. At this point, Boeing isn't just making defective airplanes, it's manufacturing a pattern of deadly negligence, and instead of consequences, it gets $20 billion and a pat on the back. That's all for today from Brainrot News. Please like and subscribe before the government takes down our channel for spreading dangerous truths.